All right, here we go. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sandra Peace Gen Extra. Excuse this crazy angle. I forgot my prop, so I don't really have a way to be able to hold this up like this. Excuse the crazy angle. All right, and there's music here, so excuse that. It was totally quiet yesterday. Hope everybody's having a great Friday. Thank you for joining Sandra Peace Gen Extra. As you can see, this is the Season 7, Real Housewives of Miami, worst wedding ever. Now, I was a little confused about Steve and Marysol. I thought they were already married, but I guess they refer to each other as husband and wife. And now Marysol says they need to make it official. So Alexia is going to throw them a wedding party. Again, welcome everybody for joining Sandra Peace Gen Extra. And as you come in, just click the like button. I appreciate that. That helps the channel grow. And I thank you for following along with these reviews. Those of you that are watching the show and those of you that are not. Now, Real Housewives of Miami, they had a little brief couple seasons out. They went over to Peacock. This show is one of my favorites in the franchise, and I recommend watching it. If you're not watching it, it's easy to pick up. You could pick it up from season 6 or even 7, and it's only 3 episodes in season 7. So this is we had and they have a lot of mini scenes because we're going to start out with a mini scene, Larsa and Preston. Preston is Scottie Pippen 2.0. He just walked in Milan Fashion Week. Of course, Larsa is telling him capitalize on that, make sure that he make sure, excuse me, everyone knows what he did, that that's so important. Does he realize the gravity of walking in Milan Fashion Week? He's 22 or so, so he's nonchalant. But he's the best at Larson and Scottie Pippen. He's 2.0. I don't know about this huge fashion career as a model Larsa is speaking of, but I like how she speaks life into her son. I think that's really sweet. And as you come in, just click the like button. Thank you so much. Okay, next we have another mini scene. We see and Julia and Navratilova are cooking breakfast for the toddlers. And Julia keeps talking while Martina is trying to double the recipe in her head. So that was kind of funny. She's doing pancakes or waffle mix, something that she needs to think about what she's doing. It's kind of like baking. You need exact instructions. So next we show Alexia. She says she's planning the official legal marriage for Steve and Marisol's party. And then they're going to a place where Alexia met Todd. So, of course, Alexia gets all nostalgic, as she's prone to do when the topic of Todd comes up. She's talking about that. One of the friends come in, not the cast, but one of Marisol and Alexia's joint friends. So she's asking Alexia, how's everything going with what is going on with Todd? Frankie is there. Frankie is still very hurt, y'all, by what Todd did. He was still confirming that Todd left them, y'all, in the middle, not the middle of the night, but kind of snuck out, took his daughter with him. Frankie didn't know what was going on. If Alexia is indeed dating Todd, again, I know it does sometimes take a few times for married couples if they're going to break up, but I don't know how Alexia could ever forgive Todd for hurting Frankie the way that he did. We see confessional Alexia telling us that even though Frankie, since the accident, has been kind of limited trying to get his thoughts out, of course, the feelings are still there. And Frankie, to me, is one of the most elevated members of really any of the cast. His limitations because of his accident, it's just that communication limitations, but he's very emotionally sensitive and free. There's something I love about Frankie, and I see why Alexia is as fierce as she is about him. Not just that he's her younger son, but he's really special. If you can hear music, please excuse that, everybody. I didn't have time to move, and yesterday this same area was quiet. They had nothing playing. So Alexia called Lisa to find out if she's going to be there. Lisa says she's in Canada, and Alexia's like, I hope not because your father died. It turns out, yes. Lisa's father did pass away, so rest in peace to Lisa's father. Lisa's really having mixed emotions because he has been out of her life for a long time. They had a rocky relationship. He was a drinker. He had been reaching out she did not want anything to do with him. She left home early, and Lisa's had it pretty tough. But she said she wished she had made up with him earlier. So Lexi is telling her he's in heaven, he's looking out for her from there. So that was kind of touching. So professional Marisol is happy she's staying. Me and Booby are making it official. So she calls Steve Booby. I think that's cute. They're the cutest couple. They're both so little and they look like they're perfectly matched. And they're always so sweet to each other. They're always complimenting each other and they have a good time. So the dog's wearing a pink bow tie. Marisol is getting her makeup done. She looks gorgeous. She's wearing a white dress. Steve is in white as well, but his jacket was kind of ivory or cream, kind of the off-type white, but they look really nice. And they're riding on this orange motorcycle scooter to the courthouse to make things official. And we met Marisol's mother the first few seasons of Real Housewives of Miami when it first came to Bravo, and then even when it left and went to Peacock. She was an older lady by that time, and she began kind of forgetting things and that sort of thing. Marisol, as the only child, was the sole support for I don't know if she was the only child, but she was the support of her mother and father. Welcome in, Sharon Gobble. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is the Real Housewives of Miami, the review for this wedding party that Marysol and Steve are having. So they're on their way to the wedding on this orange motorcycle. But I was speaking of rest in peace to Marysol's mother, who started on the show. So we remember her. Marysol has a bracelet. Her something old is a bracelet that the mother brought from Cuba decades and decades ago. I feel like she said she came here in the 30s. I'm not, that might be too far back, Nettie. So your mom was an older lady, but my mother was born in 1930 and we lost her at 92. So I don't think she could have came in the 30s. But Maddie Saw said she has no children, so that she and Steve need to be legal in Florida. So that's an important consideration. They drive through the city on the back of this she's on the back of the motorcycle. Steve is riding her on it. And it's Miami is one of the most beautiful locations. Gorgeous scene, gorgeous city. And Confession of Maddie Saw is crying. She's telling us that she never met someone so sweet and kind in her life. And then she's referencing also that there's a lot of money between them. So good job, Marysol. Marysol has her own, and then she married someone who also has his own. So Adriana is at a vegan cafe, y'all. She's trying to get regular milk. She wants skim milk. And the lady finally says, oat milk. She said, we're vegan. So they don't have any type animal products. Milk is an animal product. You can't get a latte made with skim milk or regular milk or anything that's not oat milk at somewhere like a vegan cafe. But that's Adriana. Her and Julia are meeting for breakfast, and it's really awkward, y'all. Julia's all over the place. I never liked her. I feel like she is a social climber. I feel like, in my opinion, she's with Martina Navratilova for the clout, for the name. You don't even have to know tennis, and you know who Martina Navratilova is. Okay, so I don't care for Julia, and she's made this season Guerdy as her storyline. She's been arguing with Guerdy, telling everybody this and that about Guerdy. She sits down. It's supposed to be about her and Ariana's Adriana's friendship, and of course Julia starts talking about Guerdy again. So they get back discussing their friendship, and Adriana says that she feels like they're not as close because Julia became close with Marisol and Alexia, and I think she did that because those are two popular OGs on Real Housewives of Miami. And as I said, I think that Julia's a social climber. That's part of her problem with Guerdy. Guerdy's popular. And Guerdy is not an OG. She's been there a while, but she wasn't season one like Alexia Marisol was. And I think Julia's jealous that people like Guerdy. And then Guerdy fighting cancer. She's just a sympathetic character. And she's also really sweet. Guerdy's my favorite. That's just that. TNTG, Mom, welcome in. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. So we see Guerdy and Kiki go to a place where they stretch you out. So it's kind of working out, but it's mainly stretching. Confessional Guerdy has this gorgeous, very short platinum. I won't say cut because she was bald because of her cancer treatment. Her hair is coming in, so she has a little bit of hair on her head now, and it's platinum. It is gorgeous. It's so pretty. So Guerdy is saying she's flexible, but Kiki's not as much. They're joking with the trainer, he's joking with them. So there was a really cute scene. But Kiki asked Guerdy, where is she at with the ladies? I feel like the ladies sent her to kind of feel out Guerdy and see where her head is at. Kiki, I don't like that too much. I want Kiki to stand up for Guerdy and not kind of carry water for these ladies. So I'm kind of looking at Kiki with a side eye. We know Kiki is Haitian. Kiki has no problem speaking her mind, but to me, she always tries to tiptoe around these white Cubans. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion. I don't think it's a Florida thing because Haitians aren't fearful. They don't bite their tongue. They'll lay back in the cut and wait, but you can get it. They're fighters. They're not fearful. So I don't like how Kiki is tiptoeing around Alexia and Marisol and then Julia, who's married to Martina Navratilova. I think Kiki still feels kind of like maybe the odd woman out. I just get a feeling about that with Kiki, and I'm not sure why. Because money has nothing to do with it. She doesn't have to have as much money as the other ladies. She has more style. She has more get up and go. She is a model. She's raising her two children. She just sent an 18-year-old son to college. Kiki is amazing. There's nothing about her that's less than these other ladies. Miss Z, hello. Kiki wants access to the rich ladies. Yeah, Kiki is used to having people in her life with money. Like we saw her, she went out. I think she had Guerdy with her on a yacht. She was dating someone that owned that yacht club, and that man still owned Kiki yacht. So get it where you live, Kiki. I feel she's shady, also not to be trusted. Oh, Sharon God, but I don't want to think that about Kiki. But I'm looking at her side eyes. I have to because why would Guerdy, after her season of we know what she's fighting through, and she's sharing it on the show. Martina as well. Martina has cancer. She's a survivor as well. She's cancer free, but she's a survivor as well. They've adopted these two little toddlers, and Julia is trying to make that into a storyline. But then Martina has told us she's not going to share the toddlers with us, which is fine. She don't have to protect their privacy, their innocence, all of that. But we're not going to sit down and let Julia make Guerdy her storyline. So we get a confessional with Julia, and the producer is asking Julia about what's happening with her and Guerdy, but they're not close now. Julia goes into this thing about Martina had a scare. She invited Guerdy to a yacht, blah, blah, blah. Y'all, I don't care anything about that. I don't believe half of what Julia's saying is ridiculous. She's saying that Guerdy likes to use people for connections. I think she is projecting. I think she is a person that uses people for connections. I think that's probably half the reason why she's married to Martina Navratilova. Connection. Because she has two children. I heard the lady was straight. So how you end up with a whole wife just because the person's rich and famous? I mean, come on. Just it's ridiculous. Okay, Ms. Z is saying it. Kiki doesn't want to rock the boat. I think that's it too. I don't think these other ladies can risk her spot. I don't. I know Marisol and Alexia, they may have some say so being season one OGs, but we've seen on other shows that doesn't always mean anything. If they get ready for you to get up out of there, they can do it. So Kiki doesn't have anything to be fearful about, in my opinion, with these ladies, but she tiptoeing around them and I don't like it. Again, I think the ladies are upset that a lot of viewers do love Guerdy. So I'll move it along. We have Lisa and Jody at the dance service. Y'all, I'm seeing too much of Bug-Eyed Jody. I don't like Jody. I don't like him for Lisa. The ramifications of what happened at the end of last episode, I'm not liking it, y'all. But again, we see them in Canada. Now he does encourage her because she doesn't know whether or not she should speak at the service because their relationship was rocky. And I did appreciate Jody telling her, don't have regrets. If you want to speak, speak. So okay, Jody, I'll give you that. But I don't need to see Jody every week, y'all, and then saying I don't like being on TV. I can't tell. This is Lisa's show, and we can't stop looking at her. So confessional, Lisa telling us life is short, don't hold grudges. She wished that she had made up with her dad earlier, but I hope Lisa doesn't hold that to heart. I mean, she can't go back and change it. He got back into her life later, and I can understand her being concerned. She had married a super rich man. Maybe that's why he had poked his head back up. We don't know, but I hope she's not guilty over that. We get a scene with Kiki, her mother, Guerdy, a beautiful lady. Kiki's telling us she brought her mother from Haiti. In their culture, they like to take care of their parents, so she's taking care of her mother. The mother's also helping her with her children. Now, as I said, the 18-year-old son went off to college. She has a beautiful little girl named Summer. She's probably about 5 or 6, and they're at a museum of ice cream, which looked a lot of fun. So the mom is there. Sharon Gabo is saying it. Julia is becoming deplorable at this point. Dot Willie speaking to everyone. Thank you, Dot Willie. Yeah, I never really liked her. I thought she was kind of a fake with the animal planet or whatever she's doing over there on that stink farm. But when she had that goat at the party with that diaper on a few seasons ago, I just find Julia repulsive and nasty. And I find her to be a fake. Because as I said, I didn't know anything about her. I mean, she's married to a woman, so evidently she's LGBTQ, but that's not what it initially started out as. And we had one scandal one season, they caught her kissing a whole man at a party. And Martina acted like she didn't know nothing about it. But anyway, Julia's not to be trusted. Gertie's her storyline. So the last scene, we get to the party that Alexia is throwing for Steve and Marysol. Kiki wore white, y'all. Would you wear white to a wedding party event unless you were asked to? But Kiki wore white and she looked gorgeous. Julia also had on a white blazer. So Alexia had on red. I think so, my water. Julia had on red, and we see Gertie arriving. She's in green. So I guess there wasn't a dress code, but the white, that's questionable. Wedding surrounding events, you don't wear that unless the bride asks you to, or there's a dress code where you're doing that. As far as I know, that's what I always thought. So Larsa arrives. She's asking about Todd. Confessional Larsa always has advice for everybody. She is saying, Todd's not that great. I think her memory's gone. Larsa, you crying over Marcus Jordan, who you were not even married to. At least Alexia was married to Todd. And you saying Marcus is threatening you and all this kind of stuff. He has a whole mugshot out there, and you still crying over him. But you got all this advice for Alexia. Larsa gets on my nerves, y'all. But later in this episode, she does something that I did agree with. So the ladies come in, and right before Gertie gets there, she's on the curb. She's in her green. Right before she gets there, Kiki tells the ladies that Gertie thinks that Julia is brainwashing them against her. Now, Kiki, why'd you do that? Let me see. Somebody just said it. They said that they think Kiki, yeah, she was shady, not to be trusted. And I had this in my notes, but I forgot that when that comment went up. But yeah, why would Kiki do that? Because this lady's getting ready to walk in here. This is Marysol and Steve's party. And then she's going to put this bit of information out there that's going to stir the pot. So I didn't like Kiki doing that. And Maddie Saul is on her way to the party. She's in an eye patch, which ended up looking cute. She said she woke up with a sty on her eye, y'all. So Maddie Saul being Maddie Saul, she is not going to have pictures taken like that. So she says she's just going to be a pirate. And she looked cute. It fit, actually. So Guerdy, as they're sitting around the table, she gets in. Everybody's there. She asks to hear about Merlin. Larsa starts talking about Lisa and the feud and Lisa's Jody still being friends with Marcus and blah, blah, blah. Larsa, this is so boring. The storyline, we had Scottie Pippen 2.0, which is her son Preston. That was his show. Larsa claimed she was asked to do it and she couldn't because of long story, long story. And then now she's got this thing going on with so-called Marcus threatening her, allegedly. She read the text and it made no sense. And now she's in some type feud with Lisa. So Larsa, I don't know Larsa. Somebody else shouldn't be a person's storyline. When that happens, I think they need to exit. And I know Larsa is season one. She's an OG, but she could go. Okay, so Larsa, as she's telling about that, she says Gertie asked a good question. She's like, well, okay, how did you and Lisa leave it? Because they were both in Milan and they had fallen out. It got a little awkward, but Lisa was kind of buzzing around Larsa. Lisa still wants to be friends. So Gertie asked, what happened? How did you end it? Larsa says that everything went okay. They kind of squashed it. And then Jody started yelling at them. Jody started not wanting them to talk to each other, that they got into it. And y'all, Julia, I had to laugh at Julia. She said, how big were his eyeballs? Y'all, Larsa pulled out a picture and showed, and Jody's eyes were bugged out of his head. Jody was looking crazy, y'all. So Alexia, I'm starting to think that she can't really take conflict because she said, well, some people have medical conditions. That's not what this was. I'm sorry, I don't care. Some people have medical conditions. Sharon Garbo, when you're stylish, you could do that. I thought it was cute. I thought it really looked cute. And it wasn't like she was trying too hard. It's just I don't blame her for not wanting pictures with a sty in the eye. That these are her wedding pictures for the wedding party anyway. So yeah, I thought it was cute. But Alexia's trying to say it could be medical. Gertie's in her confessional talking about, she said, well, sometimes the camera catches you and the flash gets you. And it was funny production. flashed Guerdy, and her eyes looked a little crazy, but they weren't bugged out like Jody's. Now, do y'all remember the scene? And I pointed it out where he's like, let's go in here and get some of this good AC. Let's go in here and take a shot. And then Jody and Lisa had to come out and say, well, no, it wasn't what everybody's thinking. That's half of Miami, but it's not me. I barely drink. Jody's gonna make me think something about him. So Larsa showed the picture. The picture did look suspect. His eyes were bugging out his head. So the ladies they start talking about that. And then y'all, Lisa. Well, Lisa's not there. Lisa's not there. So Alexia did say, I didn't like the fact that Larsa started talking about Lisa and she's grieving her dad and she's not there. But the other thing that came up was Julia and Guerdy. Everybody wants to know what is going on between Julia and Guerdy because they started out as really good friends, I guess. But now that I'm looking at it, I think Guerdy is being used by Julia. Julia is calculated. She wants to attach herself to someone popular. Regina Phillips, welcome in. Flight catcher, one of my friends. She's speaking to everyone as she come in. Hello, Regina Phillips. This is the Real Housewives of Miami, episode 4. So Gertie asked Julia, I want to talk. Julia's like, you're not going to start producing this. Julia went from 0 to 10 unless we just didn't see it. She started yelling at Gertie, y'all, jumped up. And Gertie was like, no, 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 no. She said, you've been talking about me all summer, all year, and now we have a chance to actually talk, and we're going to do that. Julia's jumping up, screaming. So they're going back and forth. The other ladies are really uncomfortable. And Gertie started calling. She said that you're acting like a hyena. You're acting like a farm animal. This is not an animal farm. That's actually at your house. Y'all, Gertie was reading Julia. Julia couldn't do anything, but her French accent really started coming out, and she was just trilling her R's and talking crazy. I didn't like how she was towering over Gertie, who was still seated, yelling, and the ladies were trying to calm Julia a little bit. But to me, if that had been Gertie or Kiki for that matter, standing up yelling, I think they would have been a little more active. I didn't care for that Real Houses of Miami. I didn't like that at all. So they start arguing at each, they're still arguing back and forth. Julia is recounting the cruise story again. Martina was sick. Martina had a cancer incident. She could not go. I invited Guerdy. Guerdy made it all about her. Blah, blah, blah. Gertie's defending herself. You asked me to go. Russ and I had been in an event. We were already home. I had my own health issues, and yet you asked me, please go, and I decided to go. And then something happened where they went somewhere else, and Gertie's name was not on that list. So that's where the disconnect is. I don't know. But it's not enough for Julia to be up, screaming, yelling in Gertie's face. And then, y'all, if you haven't seen the scene yet, watch this episode. Julia takes a full drink of water from the table that she had been drinking at a girl. She douses it onto Gertie, y'all. Kiki's sitting next to Gertie in white. Both of them get drenched with this water. I would have smacked Julia. And Julia was standing up. Gertie stayed seated. Oh no, she started wiping her face. The other ladies were like, oh, everybody's so shocked. I forgot who moved away from the table. They just undone. And Steve was like, oh my goodness. The men were standing back. None of the men intervened, which I like because some of the housewife franchises, the husbands can get activated. None of the men got involved. But Steve was saying they're going to ask us to get out. They're going to ask us to leave. They were all trying to calm everything down. And then somebody said, this is supposed to be about Marysol. Marysol said, is it? Yeah, this is crazy. And so then Kiki was like, I'm leaving. And confessional Kiki said, I would never have a drink thrown in my face and still stay there. I'm gonna state my case and then I'm gonna leave. And Gertie is like, well, I'm not leaving, which I don't know. I would have left, but I could see why Gertie didn't leave. Because Julia was trying to pretend like Gertie had done something to her and she didn't. Julia got aggressive, she stood up, she yelled, cursed, and ended up throwing water onto Gertie, which Gertie would not have been able to get away with. I'm sorry. So that is a double standard. And I didn't like that. So let's see. Julia is now crying. The camera picks her up crying to Larsa. I'm embarrassed. I've embarrassed myself. Like when Portia Williams attacked Kenya that time, and then she ends up crying. I'm embarrassed myself. So Julia's doing one of them. She's embarrassed herself. Larsa's like, she's like, I'm gonna take my mic off and go. Larsa says, oh no, don't do it. Larsa has no shame. So Larsa would not miss the camera time. So she's advising Julia of the same. No, don't go. You didn't do anything. Don't go. That was the end of that episode. We see a preview, y'all. There's the new lady, the other lady with a private jet. I'm waiting on Dr. Nicole. Her and Anthony are one of my favorite couples, but they brought Stephanie in. Bravo is messy. They brought Stephanie in as a nemesis to Dr. Nicole. So we're going to see Dr. Nicole come and make her appearance. And we see Stephanie and Larsa are on this private jet. So that's a new character that's coming in, one of the new ladies. I guess she's auditioning. We see Russ speaking with Guerdy. And Russ, y'all, Russ doesn't play about Guerdy. He said, I'm upset about you being attacked by a large woman. Y'all, Russ, Russ don't play about Guerdy. He said that Julia was a large woman and that she attacked Guerdy. That's right, Russ. Stand up for your wife. Julia is large, too big to be standing up over our sweet Guerdy and throwing water in her face. And I think a couple of times the way Julie was moving, she wanted to hit Guerdy. I think Guerdy might have said hit me, but she knew she couldn't hit her. She probably could hit her and keep her job. I think Gertie or Kiki couldn't hit the ladies and keep their job, but I think Julia probably could slap somebody and keep her job. But that water, that is assault, y'all. She's a cancer survivor. You don't drink out of something and throw it into anyone's face, let alone our sweet Gertie. So we see the preview. Russ is upset about that. And then we see Lisa crying that Larsa was talking about her while she's grieving her dad. Okay, let's go back to the comments. I know Sharon watches as well. Let me see this. Gertie was right. Julia deserved to be read like that. That was disgusting throwing that water on Gertie. Yes, that was one of the things Gertie was saying too. It's disgusting. This is an animal farm. She called the lady a hyena. I gotta watch that scene again, y'all. It's at the very end. Said you're a hyena. You're going wild. Talk. Use your words. You're jumping up. You're yelling. Gertie was reading. Gertie was reading, and Gertie never touched her. I don't think Gertie cursed. She certainly didn't throw anything, and Julia was undone. The French lady, y'all, the sophisticated French lady, married to the multi-millionaire Martina Navratilova. The boat is passing us. My nephew's pointing out. But yeah, Gertie was right. And the other ladies, they were like, oh, we hate this happen. But to me, they didn't do enough. Nobody wiped Gertie. Nobody did any of that. Checked on her. Are you okay? Oh my goodness. Because that water in her face, that was alarming. I really hated that. So Gertie was right. Julia deserved to be read like that. That was disgusting, throwing that water on her. It absolutely was. I agree. Julia and those fake Karens here, right after they do something, then they start crying. You attacked me, threw water in my face. She wanted to slap Gertie. I know she did. She's that type of woman that if there's a maid in her house that probably that doesn't do something right, I think that she would try to slap her. And I think she's used to people like Kiki tiptoeing around her because she and Martina have money. So this was a pretty good episode, y'all. This was a pretty good episode. The mini scenes I'm kind of getting used to where they switch from here to here to here to here. But they had a couple of meaty, good scenes. Every single person got to sit down to talk about this or that. The party was the best thing that happened. So I'm just curious to see how they're gonna carry it into next week. So I would give this like an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I give it probably 8 out of 10. Because the wedding, I loved Marysol with her husband Steve, and they rode together on the motorcycle. The ladies always, to me, have the best fashions out of any franchise. Nobody's ever like half naked or anything like that, but they're always beautifully dressed, classy. We got to see Kiki and her mom, and then we get to see Miss Julia, the high class, sophisticated French woman, become undone and turn into a hyena on an animal farm, like one of her diaper goats. So everybody, if you haven't had a chance to watch that, please go back and watch Real Housewives of Miami. Definite eight, Sharon. Okay, we're in agreement. Yeah, I like Real Housewives of Miami. So I'm still on vacation for a few more days. I just wanted to go live while I still have okay access to the internet. So everybody, thank you for joining Sandra P's Gen Extra. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the YouTube streets. Thank you all. Goodbye. All right.